As I fell, the carving knife was shaking out from the waistband of my pantaloons and dropped with a rattling sound on the floor. Never did any strain of the richest melody come so sweetly to my ears. With the intensest anxiety, I listened to ascertain the effect of the noise upon Augustus, for I knew that the person who called my name could be no one but himself. All was silent for some moments. At length, I heard again the word Arthur repeated in a low tone. Then one full of hesitation. Reviving hope, losing at once my powers of speech, and I at once screamed at the top of my voice, "Augustus! Oh, Augustus!" "Hush!" "For God's sake, be silent," he replied, in a voice trembling with agitation. "I will be with you immediately, as soon as I can make my way through the hold." For a long time I heard him moving along the lumber. And every moment seemed to me an age. At length I felt his hand upon my shoulder, and he placed, at the same moment, a bottle of water to my lips. Those only who have been suddenly redeemed from the jaws of the tomb, or who have known the insufferable torments of thirst under circumstances as aggravated as those which encompassed me in my dreary prison, can form any idea of the unhonorable transports which that one long drought of the richest of all physical luxuries afforded. When I had in some degree to satisfy my thirst, Augustus produced from his pocket 3 or 4 boiled potatoes, which I devoured with the greatest avidity. He brought with him a light and a dark lantern, and the grateful rays afforded me scarcely less comfort than the food and drink. But I was impatient to learn the cause of his protracted absence, and he proceeded to recount what had happened on board during my incarceration. The brig put to sea, as I had supposed, in about an hour after he left for the watch. This was on the 20th of June. It will be remembered that I had then been in the hold for 3 days, and during this period there was so constant a bustle on board, and so much running to and fro, especially in the cabin and the staterooms, they had no chance of visiting me without the risk of having the secret of the trap discovered. When at length he did come, I assured him that I was doing as well as possible, and therefore for the next 2 days he felt but little uneasiness on my account. Still, however, watching an opportunity to go down. It was not until the 4th day that he had found one. Several times during this interval he made up his mind to let his father know of the adventure and have me come up at once. But we were still within reaching distance of Nantucket, and it was doubtful, from some expressions which had escaped Captain Barnard, whether he would not immediately put back if he discovered me to be on board. Besides, upon thinking the matter over, Augustus, so he told me, could not imagine that I was in immediate want, or that I would hesitate in such case to make myself heard of the trap. When, therefore, he considered everything, he concluded to let me stay until he could meet with an opportunity of visiting me unobserved. This, as I said before, did not occur till the 4th day after his bringing me the watch, and the 7th since I had first entered the hole. He then went down without taking with him any water or provisions, intending in the first place to merely call upon my attention, and to get me to come up from the box to the trap, where he would go up to the stateroom and thence hand me down his fly. When he descended for this purpose, he found that I was asleep, for it seems that I was snoring very loudly. From all the calculations I can make on the subject, this must have been the slumber to which I fell just after my return from the trap from the watch, which consequently must have lasted for more than 3 days, 3 entire days and nights at the very least. Latterly, I've had reason to, both from my own experience and the assurance of others, to be acquainted with the strong soporific effects of the stench arising from the old fish oil which when closely confined. And when I think of the condition of the hold in which I was imprisoned, and the long period during which the brig had been used as a whaling vessel, I'm inclined to wonder that I woke at all, after once falling asleep, that I should have slept uninterruptedly for the period specified above. Augustus called to me at first in a low voice and without closing the trap, but I made him no reply. He then shut the trap and spoke to me in a louder and finally a very loud tone. Still, I continued to snore. He was now at a loss what to do. It would take him some time to make his way through the lumber to my box, and in the meanwhile, his absence would be noticed by Captain Barnard, who had occasion for services every minute, and arranging and copying papers connected with the business of the voyage. He determined, therefore, upon reflection, to ascend and to wait another opportunity of visiting me. He was more easily induced to this resolve as my slumber appeared to be of the most tranquil nature. And he could not suppose that I had undergone any inconvenience for my incarceration. He had just made up his mind on these points when his attention was arrested by unusual bustle, the sound of which proceeded apparently from the cabin. He sprang to the trap as quickly as possible, closed it, and threw open the door of his stateroom. And no sooner had he put his foot down upon the threshold than a pistol flashed in his face, and he was knocked down at the same moment by a blow from the handspike. A strong hand held him at the cabin door, with a tight grasp upon his throat. Still, he was able to see what was going on around him. His father was tied hand and foot, and lying along the steps of his companionway, with his head down and a deep wound in the forehead, from which the blood was flowing in a continued stream. He spoke not a word and was apparently dying. Over him stood the first mate, eyeing him with an expression of fiendish derision, and deliberately searching his pockets, from which he presently drew forth a large wallet and chronometer. 7 of the crew, among whom was the cook, a Negro, was rummaging the staterooms on the larboard for arms, where they soon equipped themselves with muskets and ammunition. Besides Augustus and Captain Barnard, there were 9 men altogether in the cabin, and these among the most ruffianly of the brig's company. The villains now went upon deck, taking my friend with them. After having secured his arms behind his back, they proceeded straight to the forecastle, which was fastened down. 2 of the mutineers standing by with axes, 2 also with the main hatch. The mate called out in a loud voice, "Do you hear below? Tumble up with you, one by one. Now mark that, and no grumbling." It was some minutes before anyone appeared. At last, an Englishman who had shipped as a raw hand came up, weeping piteously and entreating the mate in the most humble manner to spare his life. The only reply was a blow to the forehead from an axe. The poor fellow fell to the deck without a groan, and the black cook lifted him up in his arms as would a child, and tossed him deliberately into the sea. Hearing the blow and plunge of the body, the men below could now be induced to venture on deck neither by threats nor promises, until a proposition was made to smoke them out. A general rush then ensued, and for a moment it seemed possible that the brig might be retaken. The mutineers, however, seemed possible to succeeded in closing the forecastle effectually before more than 6 of their opponents could get up. These 6, finding themselves so greatly outnumbered and without arms, submitted after a brief struggle. The mate gave them fair words, no doubt with a view of inducing those below to yield, for they had no difficulty in hearing all that was said on deck. The result proved his sagacity, no less than his diabolical villainy. All in the forecastle presently signified their intention of submitting and ascertaining one by one, or pinioned and then throw it on their backs together with the first 6, there being, in all the crew who were not concerned in the mutiny, 27. A scene of the most horrible butchery ensured. The bound seamen were dragged to the gangway. Here the cook stood with an axe, striking each victim on the head as he was forced over the side of the vessel by the other mutineers. In this manner, 22 perished, and Augustus, having given himself up, were lost, expecting every moment to his own turn to come next. But it seemed that the villains were now either weary or in some measure disgusted with their bloody labor, for the 4 remaining prisoners, together with my friend, who had been thrown on the deck with the rest, were respited while the mate sent below for rum, and the whole murderous parties held a drunken carouse, which lasted until sunset. They now fell to disputing in regard to the fate of those survivors, who lay not more than 4 paces off, and could distinguish every word said. Upon some of the mutineers, the liquor appeared to have a softening effect, for several voices were heard in favor of releasing the captives altogether. On the condition of joining the mutiny and sharing the profits. The black cook, however, who in all respects was a perfect demon, and who seemed to exert as much influence, if not more, than the mate himself, would listen to no proposition of the kind, and rose repeatedly for the purpose of resuming his work at the gangway. Fortunately, he was so far overcome by intoxication as to be easily restrained by the less bloodthirsty of the party, among who was a line manager, who went by the name of Dirk Peters. This man was the son of an Indian woman of the tribe Upsarakas. Who lived among the fastnesses of the Black Hills, near the source of the Missouri. His father was a fur trader, I believe, or at least connected in some manner with the Indian trading posts on Lewis River. Peters himself was one of the most ferocious-looking men I ever beheld. He was short in stature, not more than 4 feet 8 inches high, but his limbs were of Herculean mold. His hands especially were so enormously thick and broad as hardly to retain a human shape. His arms as well as legs were bowed in the most singular manner, and appeared to possess no flexibility whatever. His head was equally deformed, being of immense size and with an imitation of the crown, like that on the head of the most Negroes, was entirely bald. To conceal this latter deficiency, which did not proceed from old age, he usually wore a wig formed of any hair-like material which presented itself, occasionally the skin of a Spanish dog or American grizzly bear. At the time spoken of, he had won a portion of one of these bear skins, and added to no little to the natural ferocity on his countenance, which betook the Upsaroka character. The mouth extended nearly from ear to ear, the lips were thin and seemed, like some portions of his frame, to be devoid of any natural pliancy, so that the ruling expression never varied under the influence of any emotion whatever. This ruling expression might be conceived when it is considered that the teeth were exceedingly long and protruding, never even partially covered in any instance by the lips. To pass this man with the usual casual glance, one might be imagined to convulse with laughter, but a second look would induce a shuddering acknowledgment that if such an expression were indicative of merriment, the merriment must be that of a demon.